What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and are you ready to work with those lunar shenanigans? Get a feel for the week. Got another eclipse around the corner. It's that time. It's an interesting one this week. The moon starts off really busy on the first day, and we kind of just like we're feeling through some days. But it's some nice things that we're feeling through. I think as the energies are building up, but there's something as once we get to that eclipse, I'm getting a feeling of just like hidden things that are kind of happening behind the scenes there. Not necessarily all insidious, but you know we're going to get a feel, and then like the end of it is just processing everything that's happening. So I think this is going to be an interesting week that we're going to be feeling through, and we'll get into all that here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin, and one of the things that I do in this channel is talk about the lunar shenanigans, what sign the moon's in, what phase it's in, when it happens to go void of course, and just to get a general feel of the energies through the week, as the moon has different conversations with the celestial bodies and is distributing that energy to us. And I'm going to be going over the week of September 16th through the 22nd, 2025. I'm going to have to look at this. I had to change the background for this one here soon. Nature, my problem. But let's go ahead and get into this thing here. Because like I said, starting off, Tuesday is jam-packed on the 16th of September. We're in the waning crescent phase. We're getting closer to that new moon. And it starts off really nice when the moon is going to be, well, not in this chart here, but before it moves into Leo, the moon's going to be first forming conjunction with Big Papa. So that's always really nice when we get that monthly moon Jupiter conjunctions. Those are really great times for just really feeling this sense of abundance, this sense of growth, this sense of opportunities. Because the thing with the eclipse, can be a bit tumultuous, but they are these kind of like supercharged or kind of bigger beginnings that are getting ready to happen here. And I think that's what's happening when we move to that moon sextiling the sun. That's when the planets are the celestial bodies are 60 degrees apart here, and it's a softer aspect than the trine, so it requires a bit more initiative, but it creates the sense of opportunity. There's a collaborative feature with that, with kind of the sextile there. So this could be something where with that sun, an opportunity to get more in feeling like oneself, and feeling that and having that sense of growth happening. Now, there, of course, naturally, when we're doing that growth, there's always a little bit of a challenge. That's why I kind of have this one more as a neutral day, because we do have that moon will square Mars at some point. And there's one thing when the moon's in Cancer, I think, to be feeling that sense of expansion, feeling the growth, the opportunity, the hope, the optimism that Jupiter brings. And it's another thing to execute that, to do the things that are bringing in that sense of abundance, the new groups that maybe want to hang around, relationships, whatever it is that we're trying to attract towards or trying to build in our world. And that's where I think this moon here is just trying not to get in with Mars and Libra, trying not to let any sort of like self-undoing thoughts get in the way. Mars can be a little tricky sometimes. Or having like where you have these big ideas and then maybe people squash them down. This would be a week, as I say that, this would be a week that if you are thinking about starting up some new things, maybe you want to do a career change, maybe you want to do an appearance change, whatever new thing that you want to start off, I think that this would be a week to kind of keep that stuff under wraps, kind of keep that to yourself, build those things, get things established first before unveiling those, because then we get to that. After that, the moon is sextiling Mercury, so now we get this game plan with Mars. We see where the challenges are going to be, where we need to, because that might be a matter of, with Mars too, that moon squaring, having the courage to initiate, to make these changes and things like that. That can always be a little unsettling sometimes, but I think that Mercury, or the moon sextiling Mercury, that's going to be an opportunity to, again, maybe have, when I say keep things under wraps, like I wouldn't tell like a bunch of people, but maybe just like a close few that will give you that constructive criticism that is needed, that's going to come with your best interest in mind. Like, hey, I like that idea, have you thought about doing this, or have you thought about doing this, as opposed to completely slashing the idea altogether. And I think with that, then that kind of leads to the moon forming a trine with Saturn. And that's a nice one, because I think that gives, even though Saturn's coming in with, that heaviness sometimes, the responsibilities, all those things, this can make it feel more manageable when the moon is in a trine, because the trines are when the planets or the celestial bodies are 120 degrees apart, so they're in like elements there. So this could be taking that feeling, where we were feeling with Jupiter and with Saturn, knowing what to do, how to ground those feelings, give those feelings form, to put in the work to be able to achieve whatever it is, again, that you're wanting to start here. So, or thinking about maybe starting up here. And then that energy, and then lastly, oops, I got ahead of myself there. And then lastly, as after the moon has that trine with Saturn, then around about 10:19 p.m., and that's going to be Pacific time, the moon is going to move from Cancer into Leo. And this would be one, especially if you have placements around before it moves into Leo, if you have any placements around, like, especially like late degrees of the cardinal signs, that's Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, Aries, this energy may be a little bit more action-packed for you. And then as we move into Leo, now there we're going to be a shift here into the fixed energies. That's going to be Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus. So if you have a lot of those placements, this may be, while the moon's transiting through, that may be a bit more active for you. But the moon is not going to be doing a whole lot when it's in Leo. And when you think about, let's talk about the archetype of Leo. Let's get into the next energy here, because Wednesday and Thursday are pretty much just moon and Leo time. The moon's just chilling. And I put this one in green because it's building up to this energy with Venus, this conjunction that's going to be happening, which is the other benefic. And it's even going to be having this harmonious conversation with Mars. So there's something that we can be more constructive with the martial energy. But when you think about the Leo, they're ruled by the sun. They are the fixed fire sign, active or yang in nature. And Leo is, that fire energy is about the will, the passion, the drive to do, not really thinking about it, just doing it. And I find with Leo, when you pour your things into things that just fuel you up, that make you shine bright, I mean, Leo is just radiant, and then people are attracted by that. You feel this warmth, this generosity, I think, when we're thinking about Leo. So I think about, when we're in this energy, think about the things that you're wanting to attract. Because like I said, the moon's going to be starting off here. Just moved about 24 hours later, and it's about 13 degrees here. Then we get into Thursday, the 18th of September. The moon's really close now here to Venus as we're getting towards the end of the day. But as that energy, again, is building up, think about those Venusian features, like the things that you're wanting to change in life, the things that you want to, the newer things maybe that you want to attract. This waning phase could be, okay, think about the things you want. Okay, the waning phase, what are we cutting out? What are we removing? The waning half of the lunar cycle is really supportive of that, of things that have reached their maturation, that are overripe, that are due to just be, to turn into compost, so that we can grow anew. That's how I would spend these next couple days, as this energy is building up. Because then we get to Friday, the 19th of September, and before the moon moves into Virgo, the moon is going to first have that sextile with Mars. So again, there's this opportunity there to get some things moving, to take some actions on things. The eclipse energy is just like, it's right around the corner. And with the moon conjunct Venus, this is, again, I think it can be just a really nice time to just in general, even just to do some nice things with some people, kind of gather around, be around that kind of supportive energy right now. Be around people who are inspirational, who give you really good ideas and things like that, so you can bounce some things off there. I think that would be a wonderful way of using the Venusian energy. But even just doing some and just think about some things that you do to just better take care of yourself, and then maybe even the people that are around you that are even receptive to that, or to the things that you've been doing. But, I always like when the moon is, forming that, the conjunctions with the benefics. There's a usually really nice energy. Thinking Venus too, I always think of like laughter, joy, beauty, things like that. So, maybe hosting some kind of a little event like that during this time could be something that could be really beneficial with the Jupiter, or with the moon conjunct Venus. And then right after that, shortly after, the moon will move from Leo into Virgo, and that's going to happen at about 5:23 a.m. And again, that's going to be Pacific time. And now that we're shifting into Virgo, the energies are more analytical. It's getting more mental. Virgo's ruled by Mercury, and it's the mutable earth sign, and they are receptive or yin in nature. And Virgo's the problem solvers. This is, we've had these nice feels with Jupiter and with Venus. So now it's like, how do we take those feels and keep them going? Or how do we turn those feelings into something? We've been feeling this good energy. Maybe we're hanging around, and now we're feeling rejuvenated to get back to the grind, to get back to the obligations, to the responsibilities, to the things that you're wanting to do. But I think that I always like when the moon's in Virgo, because it's just it feels very just like kind of get done energy, getting things mapped out. Again, like I was saying, for whatever this, whatever you may want to begin during this eclipse. And this is something too where if you have any, now we're moving into mutable energy, so if you have a lot of mutable placements, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Gemini, then this may be more active for you. But yeah, then we move into Saturday, another nice little aspect. You've seen it's been nothing but green. This is like, I think one of those, it's an interesting pocket that's happening right here. And I think really take advantage of that. Try to filter out as much of the noise as you can, and kind of focus more so maybe on kind of like your immediate kind of environment during this time. But the moon's going to form a sextile with Big Papa. And again, that's creating opportunities. This could be a chance to network with some people. Maybe you want to start some sort of like partnership with something. Or this can be a time where, maybe an opportunity where you can receive some type of support, receive some sort of whatever that might look like with this moon sextile in Jupiter. It's a nice energy, and I think anytime this conversation happens with these two, it's always a great time to just do things that restore your faith, your hope, get you feeling just like that anything's possible, and not in a way that's, I think like delusional, but more so just like in a way that's like, like I can do this, like I'm feeling great, I'm doing great, I'm the relationship, let's just do this thing. So I really like that as we're kind of having into this, and soak it up. Soak it up as long as you can, because then we reach some red. Because this eclipse, unlike the lunar eclipse that happened, has Saturn in the conversation. Now, Sunday, the 21st of September, the moon is first going to form that opposition with Saturn that's retrograde. And this is the reason that I was saying, it's interesting what I think is getting ready to happen here, and I think that we're going to need a lot of that Virgo discernment, as well, that comes with them. Because Saturn, yes, it can be with like hindrances and delays, and I'm not going to go super much into the eclipse. I'll talk about that more on Wednesday when I go do the Celestial News Weekly. But what I'm getting a real feeling from is this. It's that secretive concealment, because I know that goes a lot. Neptune gets a lot of that, but Saturn's like the OG of that, of things not appearing like they seem, or like things that possess false appearances or secrets, concealments, things like that with Saturn. And considering too, whenever the moon is when we're in that new moon phase, that's when the moon is, of course it was under the beams in the previous day, but now it's under the beams of the sun. And again, that's a time where things are hidden. And I get that there's a feeling of something, maybe some big things that are going to be happening on this day, but it feels like there's something underneath the surface that's going to be happening a lot, that's having more sort of like long-term implications of things. So this would be a day where I would be mindful about getting wrapped up in the noise of things. If there's, especially if you're one that feels, Virgo energy, I think can sometimes be overstimulated. Any of the Mercury signs, Gemini or Virgo, and I think that with Saturn too, there can be a lot of anxieties that come up. So this would be one where do some things where you're trying to do things that keep you grounded, that keep you peaceful, because Saturn is here. Something is overwhelming the feelings, I think with this, that's trying to cloud the judgment. That's just what this feeling is that I'm getting when I'm kind of really kind of sitting with this. And you think about what the moon and Saturn represents and all these things. So, I'm going to be curious to just kind of see what happens, for us collectively, as we kind of go through this thing here, because even just thinking about Saturn can even be thinking about those in like higher ranks and things like that. So there may be even be some things moving around behind the scenes with that, with like governments and things. But again, I'll go into that when we talk about that on Celestial News Weekly. And then we get the new moon, which is the moon when the moon and the sun conjunct one another, and that's going to be at about 12:54 4 p.m. And it's happening at, let me get the degrees here. So it's happening at 29 degrees and 5 minutes of Virgos where that's happening. So again, this is really busy. If you have anything towards the end degrees of Virgo, this little period, excuse me, not just Virgo, of the mutable signs, this is a very active pocket. So I would pay attention to how this eclipse, especially if you're in like a sun year, moon year, things like that, Saturn year. So yeah, definitely pay attention to what comes up, because I think that there's going to be some interesting changes, as we get ready to, because a lot of planets are shifting too. Venus has just moved. The sun's is going to be moving here soon. Just oops, and I didn't update the last chart for this one, so ignore this chart. But the last one that we're going to be getting into is on Monday. Actually, let me pause this for one moment. Okay, we're back. We're back, and I got that chart fixed. So I was just like, no, I'm not going to be able to do that. So last thing, on a Monday, and let's get ourselves together. The 22nd of September, now the moon is, settled into Libra, where now we're starting to, the energies are waxing, but now the moon is going to form a conjunction with Mercury. And how I really, understand that is just like us processing what has happened. This to me, there could be some kind of news that comes up, and it's just thinking about how we're going to stay balanced in the long term, in the long term of this. Oh, and I think let me go back a little bit, because I don't think I mentioned before that happens, the moon is going to move into Libra at about 2:40 p.m. and that after this the whole thing is said and done. And now when we think about with Libra, this is figuring out, we really got kind of gathering our thoughts in this, because Libra is they're ruled by Venus, and they are the cardinal air sign, and they're active or yang in nature. And so this would be thinking about how we're going to move going forward. I think that our actions after this eclipse are going to be pivotal in this, kind of processing this, because Libra is one, they're the initiators of thought. And so you want to, I think with that one, it's you remembering that all of our actions and thoughts have consequences, and whatever that means. And that's not just all negative, that's neither positive, but it's just remembering that, especially while the moon, so it's kind of co-present with Mars for a little bit longer, just be thinking before we act. Because with Libra, with being ruled by Venus, Libra has a very attractive quality, and I like to think of them as kind of like your thoughts become, not necessarily thoughts become things, but like your words are kind of like a magnet. What you put out there is going to attract that. So that's just something to pay attention to as we're getting into, processing this eclipse energy and things that you're feeling. Try not to let the emotions override the rationale. Come at it with a balanced approach from this. These are the things I'm feeling, and this is how I want to respond in kind, taking a beat before moving on there, which is what I think really ties in nicely to, again, back to Monday. Yeah, this is just really kind of understanding what's happened during this period of time. Whatever this thing that goes down, what does that mean moving forward for us collectively? But I also think just on an individual level, how do these kind of bigger worldly things affect how I can move, in this world, in this journey, and just like what are some ways that you may have to do some with that Libra energy, some creative thinking, as far as like how we're going to navigate these times, because I think that something when I'm gonna go ahead and switch back over. Yeah, again, something with that, with this eclipse, feels very, something's going on there, especially when you're having such a hard aspect, that's happening with Saturn. I think that's something to really kind of tune into, when the astrology is really stark like that and has these really kind of exact things that are going on there. So But again, we'll really kind of I'll dive really kind of dive into that a lot more here on Wednesday. But that's basically the feel for the week. Very very interesting stuff. But I do think overall, I do think that this can be a really great time to think about what are some new things that you're wanting to initiate, especially big changes, new beginnings that are maybe happening in that Virgo sector of your chart there. So that's something to tune into as well. What is maybe it's something with finances, maybe it's something with family, home, children, work, relationships. See where that's where this eclipse is going to be happening to get a better idea of where what's coming up for you. But yeah, I'm excited. It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag as far as like what's going to be happening here, but we're in this together. I think that the moon reminds us of that. It's the gathering of the masses, and us coming together to make sense of where we're going to be moving collectively from here. But it all starts from that individual step, as well there. So I think that it's not, letting the collective overwhelm the individual, working together in this. So just some things to think about there. But yeah, that's all I got for you. And if this is something where if you want to see how these transits are more personally working with your natal chart, or maybe you want to just learn your natal chart in general, or if there's any sort of like elections that you want to start, whether it's starting up a new business, going on a trip, signing a contract, buying a car, a house, establishing a country, whatever it is that you want to do, then down in the description box, there's a link to book a consultation with me, so definitely check that out. And if you have any questions as far as like the services that I provide, my email's down there as well, so definitely feel free to reach out to me. And then there is a link for the playlist for the Celestial News Weekly. And on that little segment, that's just where I talk about what the sun and the other classical planets are doing, where they're transiting, what signs are going to be most effective, and how to most practically work with those energies. And then I have this series that I'm doing right now where I talk about different celestial bodies in different zodiac signs in different houses, my thoughts on them, how to approach that if you're just first like kind of looking at your chart, some things to pay attention to. So all of that is, I have them all listed by playlist, so you can look up by your placements. And if you have any like requests for videos that I haven't done yet, definitely feel free to leave in the comment section, and I will add them to the queue. So I actually got a couple of videos I'll be having out, requests that I'll be putting out here shortly. So that's also available for you there. But until next time, stay mindful out there. You keep eyes on that moon. And I will catch you on the next one. Later.